here's a person putting everybody's life in danger just so they can get away with a crime. And one thing we know, stolen cars are connected to almost every crime. For a criminal to commit a crime, he needs transportation. So let's be honest, and no insult to Martyr, but if you're a criminal and you're dependent on Martyr to escape the crime scene, you're done. There's no way you can break in a house and get a big screen TV and get on Martyr and get away. There's no way you can rob a bank and get away. You got to steal a car. So we know when people steal cars, it's connected to bigger crimes. One year, the first murder in Clayton County, when they came and killed the guy, was in a stolen car. So had that car been spotted in the jurisdiction they came from and they were aggressive about stopping or putting them off the road, that young man might be alive today. So we can't let criminals have transportation. So if we say, well, we're just going to let them go, we think we're preventing something now, but you may not be preventing a death in the future. You're saying, well, I don't want to chase him because I'm afraid we may have a wreck. Well, you don't chase him and he goes and he kills somebody, like in the situation we had with that first murder. So we've got to pursue them, but we got to think about how we're going to pursue them. What's the safest way to do it? I'm not saying we should chase everybody. I'm not saying that we should chase in all circumstances. Mm-hmm. But if we simply say, once you're in a car, we're going to let you get away because we're afraid. And why we're afraid? We're afraid because we're going to take the brunt of it. We're going to get prosecuted. We're going to get sued. We're going to be in a court of public opinion. So now, again, you got the police afraid to do their job. And when they're afraid to do their jobs, they do one of two things. They either hesitate or don't do anything at all. Mm-hmm. And when they don't do anything at all, it gives the criminal a chance to get away. And when he gets away, he gets to find another victim. Because if he's out there raping, robbing, and murdering, and you don't stop him then, now you've given him an opportunity to get to his next victim. Mm-hmm. So everything there's a balance. I'm not saying let law enforcement do whatever they want to whoever they want. Certainly not saying that. But at the same time, if we continue to handcuff them, if we continue to prosecute them for everything, if we continue to prosecute them for political reasons, just so a prosecutor can get on TV or just so someone can win an election or someone can stop someone from winning an election, then you get what we got now. Mm. And it's chaos. Mm.
You think we have chaos?
Absolutely, it's chaos. We saw it. You saw it during the Atlanta riots. That's a situation that it's in the book. In my involvements in the Atlanta riot, that's a situation that should have been stopped. There was a clear time to stop that, and by trying to be nice and show sympathy, it wasn't about that. There's two types of people that show up you got protesters and you got rioters. Okay, protesters are there for legitimate reasons. They're not trying to hurt anybody. They're trying to articulate a cause. They're trying to bring awareness. So they're going to give speeches. They're going to march. And that's beautiful. That's fine. But then you got this other group that show up, and they're rioters. They just want to see the city burn. They really don't care if someone got killed or not. It's just an opportunity to loot and burn and do whatever. And they come in and they take advantage of those situations. Well, of course, they make it bad for the protesters. But you got to remember, when you shut a situation down like that, it also protects the innocent protesters because they can get hurt in the middle of a fray. Mm-hmm. So I think when that situation happened, I think they were too afraid to shut it down because first they were going to have to deal with the press. Oh, my God, the police shut it down and they're not allowing people to give their free speech. That's not what it's about. It's about safety. If we allow this to keep going on, then what happened is going to happen. And that was death and destruction. It wasn't that we didn't want people to protest, just that it should have been shut down, and then it got completely out of control. And then when it gets out of control, there's only one way to bring it under control, and that's a use of force that we may never even had to have gotten to if it was just stopped in the beginning once that first incident happened.
As a result, your guys from Clayton County did get called in. Mm-hmm. They were requested, and you agreed to assist. Right. During the Atlanta riots. But then you pulled out.
It's true.
So what made you decide to go, and then what made you decide to pull out?
Well, of course, we're going to help a law enforcement agency. And at that point, Atlanta was over their head. And let me just say this, APD was not over their heads because they couldn't handle it. They can handle it. They weren't allowed to handle it. When the protests first started, they didn't have riot gear, they didn't have shields, and I'm sure it was this, community police and feel good thing. Hey, we understand, but you got to be prepared, because you got to be prepared for the people who are showing up who aren't there to protest; they're there to riot. So you got to factor in that they're going to show up too. Okay, so they weren't allowed to handle it. So I don't want. I know a lot of guys with APD, and they were totally capable of getting that under control. So we're not going to indict the officers of APD, because they could have handled it if they were allowed to. But when it got out of control, I agreed to come, as long as we're coming to handle business. We're not coming to sew mask and play with baby dolls or whatever like that. We got to put a stop to it. You know what I'm saying? And it was said, it was understood. Well, we came back to help again, and then there's an incident that happened that was unfortunate. I think a car took off, and that's a whole nother story. I'm sure everybody has a side to the story. But when those officers were fired and arrested, it was like, well, if you're going to do that to your own officers, I'm sure you'll do it to my deputies. So I told them, come on back out, because I can't send my deputies in a situation like that and then they're second guess on every move they made. Mm-hmm. Now let's talk about high speed chases, and let's talk about what happened. So you got an incident where the officers are trying to get some young people out of a car, and they take off, and they're not able to completely take off because there's some cars in front of them. And they catch up with them, and of course that's where the whole debate starts from there. So let me tell you what's interesting about that. Speaking about car chases, you could see on the media that one of the officers was stabbing a tire, and I remember him saying something about it. And I talk about this in the book. That was actually one of my deputies. And he was actually doing something I taught my deputies to do. Now, the media made it sound like, look, oh my God, they're stabbing tires. Well, let me tell you why I told my deputies to do stuff like that. I said, look, if we have to chase, we have to chase. But I would rather not chase a car if we don't have to. So if you're in a situation where you think it's going to turn into a high-speed chase, I would rather you puncture that tire and I pay to give them a new tire than us going 100 miles per hour through the city or the county and possibly someone getting killed or even you getting killed. I said, again, a wise general foresees problems and prevent them before it even happens. Well, after I called my deputies back, that deputy is terrified because he sees these Atlanta officers being arrested and fired, and he's like, oh my God, they're coming after me. And I said, hey, we're going to stand behind you on that. And, if we got to pay your legal fees or whatever, if they try to indict you, because that's not right. Because he was doing something I trained him to do. And the reason I trained him to do it is I was trying to find a way. How do we prevent the chase before it even happens?